public service announcement. We are going to be in Cancun from March 17th to March 24th. So we'll be probably doing some live videos and stuff. But if our, both channels uploads are a little bit light, that's why. But we'll be taking pictures and stuff. So, dude, you want to talk about someone who's leaving big money on the table? Yeah. First of all, Sydney Sweeney's been nude 1,000 times in videos. I mean, in movies and TV. And how is she not doing OnlyFans? Like, she would she would probably make $50 million her first year. And she doesn't even have to do anything that she didn't already do. All right. Play with Matches. We are back, you guys.
Hello.
We just got done at a jiu-jitsu tournament.
We did.
Where our children had quite the showing. We'll tell you about it some other time. But
that was a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time. So I wanted to go through this video right here because this is one of those topics that I think is hilarious. Sydney Sweeney blamed by feminists for selling sex in Hollywood. This ought to be good.
Elaborate.
This ought to be good.
Have you watched this?
No, I just saw it and I was like, let's do this.
Let's just explore this together.
Let's just see how this goes. All right, let's do this thing.
Ask Sydney Sweeney. Sex definitely sells in Hollywood these days. And in quote from Sydney Sweeney's interview with Cosmopolitan back in 2022 is going viral again and getting lots of negative attention from feminists specifically. We actually talked about her somewhat recent commentary on Hollywood feminism, and she basically said that feminism in Hollywood is an entire facade that women use to cover up for rampant mean girl behavior.
Anybody with half a brain that isn't ideologically poisoned understands that to be true because it's human nature. It's one of the reasons that movies of old felt more honest, because they were on. I mean, they still tend to be honest about the worst aspects of men. Mm-hmm. Lust for power and things like that. But they used to be honest about the worst aspects of women as well. Whether that was, catty behavior, crabs in a bucket. In the same way with women, you want to tear other women down as it happens.
He's like, just constantly crying about things. They can never get things done. They always wish they could be the CEO, but they're whamming, so they have to, do the laundry.
Couldn't possibly do anything
Make
hard.
a sandwich. That's the main problem. I'm just kidding. But I just love anything that involves ugly people being mad at hot people who are successful because they are hot. Like, where, it's like Sydney Sweeney selling sex. Disgusting. It's like, seems to be working.
I was going to say, people are buying it. So.
Seems to be working. One of the biggest stars in Hollywood. And all she did was not act like a stuck-up skank who was too good for all the dudes who wanted to be fans of theirs, Any of you could have done this. Let me make myself big for this. Any of you hot girl celebrities who are in Hollywood, any of you could have been Sydney Sweeney. You just had to shut your stupid face and look hot and just accept the fact that that's a good thing. That dudes are like, damn, she's smoking. And you're like, yeah, I am. Fuck you, feminist. You could have been Sydney Sweeney. She makes $2 million per Instagram post, just for the record.
Not all women, but it does happen, and it's why it felt so real, because people understood back then, like, Mean Girls is a thing for a reason. There's a reason why the original Mean Girls resonated with so many people, because most people, even the Mean Girls themselves, probably know someone who made them feel that way.
Sure, yeah, agree. And I think that it's more interesting to watch shows about female villains, for me specifically. Like, I find that subgenre the most compelling.
Female villains?
Yeah, like Amanda Seyfried playing Elizabeth Holmes was incredible.
I think it works for the stuff. Like for me and you, it might be a little bit different.
Like Elizabeth Holmes.
No idea what movie
She's talking about the Theranos chick. The one who never blinks, and she's like, I'm the female Steve Jobs.
I literally have no idea what she's referencing.
No way. No, this conversation just got a lot more interesting. So, Elizabeth Holmes is this woman. So this is like, you want to talk about, I don't know if irony is the right word, but hilarious, like just absolute hilarity for these feminists, right? Because they're always like, oh my God, it's these, do you know how few female CEOs there are? And you're all, maybe that's because there's not very many women who aspire to be a CEO.
Yeah, exactly.
Men want to be a CEO so they can slay pussy. Girls don't care about that. That's the only reason anyone does anything.
Or money.
Why do they want money?
Well, I mean, people want money for lots of reasons, but I think the argument is also a lot of moms, and this is a whole other feminist era situation. A lot of women want to have children and lives and families, and you can't really effectively CEO an organization and your family.
Yep, that is a very true statement. So it's one of those things. I can't remember the example you gave me, but I remember we were talking about this a million years ago when we first got, like, I don't even think we were married yet when you first talked to me about this, about people's studies finding these correlations that are like
correlation versus causation.
Yeah, like I think you told me about a thing where they were connecting
polio with ice cream.
Yes.
Yeah,
that. And I mean, this is one of those ones where it's like, oh my God, you know, there's 100 male CEOs for every one female, and they're all, and you know what that proves? You're all, I can't wait to hear this. They're all the patriarchy.
Sexism.
You're all, right.
Yeah.
Or
most women don't really want that.
Mm-hmm. Or also, here's a brain buster. So if we went back, I don't know, 100 years, what were the gender roles? They're all men were responsible for going out and killing things to eat. Maybe not 100. Pretty, I mean, still 100, a lot, you know, whatever. You get the point. Like before the Industrial Revolution, men went out and killed animals because they were faster and they were stronger, better at killing things. Women took care of the children and so on and so forth. It's just a matter of who's better at what. They're better at multitasking.
Exactly.
They're not self-destructive retards, generally speaking.
Which, I mean, we're gonna have some feminists in the comments saying something, but that's the truth of it. Like women, as a whole, I'm not saying every single individual, right? But like as a whole, tend to be better at things like you were saying, multitasking, raising kids, having kids, and men are typically, not always, but typically faster, stronger, and it makes sense. That's how civilization advances. Like you find out what groups of people do best and have them do that thing. It doesn't need to be even Steven fair across the board. You don't need to have equal representation of every gender in every role across the board. It doesn't make any sense.
You do what works for you and your family. It's like, and in many cases, it's like you have this, like the way I look at our unit is like, I have this tiny little incredible whirlwind of brilliance and success. And that whirlwind is you. And I knew it the second you clicked subscribe, liked the video, and then rung the bell. So do it. Who will just do what needs to be done. She's like,
Is that me?
Oh yeah, that's you. And then you have, you know, the kids or whatever, but you, and you're like, I could do this, 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 I could do this. As long as I just make sure that you know that I am like, damn, you're a fucking badass. And you're all like, yeah, I am a badass. And I'm like, you are my little. I
am a badass.
You, of course. So. But I'm like, you are my little tiny. I will protect you at all costs. And you're like, okay, so I feel safe. I feel like he's making me feel like I'm appreciated.
Yes,
and
it's a big one.
You know, it's like everybody just play your fucking role, dude. And then it's like, oh, you need someone to like make the hard decisions. She's not very good at that. I will do that.
I can if I need to. I just don't want to.
She does not like things that like we have to get our foundation done. She knows that we have to get the foundation done. She will go get 5 quotes. We can kind of loosely be like, hey, let's go with this one. But Gabrielle will never be like, let's move $20,000. I was
gonna say it's also a large financial decision that like.
But like I'm saying, like we're all okay, so go with them, and you're like, I'm like, I think we agreed like to go with them. You're all, did we?
Let me weigh my options again.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, it's neither here nor there, dude. It's like this idea that. Anyway, this is a tangent related to Elizabeth Holmes because we know that is how these people see the world. It's like it's patriarchy is why there's no women CEOs. So Elizabeth Holmes founds a company called Theranos. Okay. And I want to show you what she looks like. Just I'm sure you probably know who she is when you see her face.
Maybe.
Remember this chick?
Kind of.
Wow. Okay, good. So that's great. So this chick founds a company called Theranos. Okay, she's at Stanford. her freshman year.
Oh, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
She faked the, yeah.
I mean, in fairness, though, that's what a lot of these entrepreneurs do is they fake it until they can do the thing that they said that they're going to be able to do. The problem for what she was doing, though, was it was a medical thing. She was like, what she was saying was, oh my God, like this process of having to go and draw these huge vials of blood when you want to get your blood taken is so stupid. Like, why don't we just get like a finger prick, like your diabetes thing, and then we can diagnose all of this stuff.
Yeah.
She comes up with this idea as an 18-year-old. She runs it up the ladder at Stanford to her, you know, unit like leader or whatever, like the teacher. And the teacher's like, this is impossible. Okay, Elizabeth, I love your passion, but this is scientifically impossible. What you're laying out can't happen. This is not a matter of like technology or whatever.
There's a reason why we draw vials.
This cannot, this can't happen, right? Elizabeth Holmes, undiscouraged, runs it up the ladder to another dude, or some guy. It's a woman who told her like, this is not going to work. You know, she finds some guy. He ends up being like, wow, you know, let's take a run at it. She ends up getting introduced to like she was incredible at networking. So she gets to like Henry Kissinger and like all these really prominent names, you know, and she pitches them. And these people, you know, when I used to raise money for venture stuff, and I used to always tell you, I'm like, if you get one big name person into your thing, then the other ones will look, they're all, oh, he in.
Did it. Yeah.
I don't need to do a bunch of really hardcore vetting. They vetted it, right? So she was amazing at that. And so she brought in so many people and they raised so much money. And basically the device that she was saying was going to change the world is this like, it's like the size of like our printer downstairs, right? Except, you know, you prick the thing, you put it in, and it runs all these tests inside of it, right? And spits out whatever. So as the company is spinning up, they've got this incredible campus of that looks like Apple or Google or whatever. And she models the company exactly like that. And she models herself after Steve Jobs exactly.
Hence the black turtleneck.
She always wore the black turtleneck. She was worth $9 billion because of all of these connections she had. Ran the value up so much because every time they raise money, they're raising it as like a, you know, additional. So they're like, oh, it's getting raised. I don't remember the exact numbers. They're like $30 billion valuation. They've never sold anything. They did nothing. It's literally an idea and billions of dollars being spent. Right. So she starts spending all of her time on the tour, you know, doing these like, I'm on a stage, and she like would talk like this. She's like, hello, I am Elizabeth Holmes.
Why?
Like very intentionally changing her voice. So bizarre.
Why? I want to see her talk.
Dude, and watch, she never blinks, dude. Okay?
Is she like
she's a sociopath.
A robot?
For sure, sociopath. Yeah, here, let's like here.
Is there anything that you
knows? Is available to everyone.
No, this is
Trial, Holmes was found guilty.
We want Elizabeth Holmes
to
interview. Olds do it like the olds. Here we go. Yeah. Here.
Steve Jobs.
Like youngest self-made female billionaire takes high-tech approach to blood testing. So she was literally paraded around the world as finally the female Steve Jobs. And she just dove headfirst into that.
She loved it.
Yeah.
Okay.
This morning, Elizabeth Holmes. Why not?
I work all the time, and I'm basically in the office from the time I wake up and then working until I go to sleep every day.
There's a blink.
At 19 years old, Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford. She had a little
That's
tuition
weird.
money.
She almost never blinks.
That's why I love what I'm doing so much.
What Holmes is doing is running Theranos, the biotech company she founded in 2003.
Healthcare is the leading cause of bankruptcy.
You'll see her either in a black turtleneck or a white lab coat, taking a high-tech approach to blood testing. Instead of a needle to the arm, it's a pinprick to the finger. Holmes is marketing Theranos as a faster and cheaper alternative to a process that hasn't meaningfully changed in decades.
So how does it work?
First, we've created these.
This is fun because now we know, watching this that this was fundamentally impossible, and this is all complete horseshit. Okay, like they had never proven in any capacity they were going to be able to do this. So everything she says here is just fucking bullshit, as we found out.
Little tiny tubes, which we call the nanotainers, which are designed to replace the big traditional tubes that come from your arm and instead allow for all the testing to be done from a tiny drop from a finger.
Theranos has struck a partnership with drugstore.
So Gabrielle and I are raising money, guys, for an idea where you can fly across the Atlantic Ocean on a feather. Now, you're used to getting onto planes or buying a private jet if you can afford it, but in our future state, it's a bird feather fashioned so that you can sit on it and woo. It's dead silent. It flies at 750 miles per hour. It's not as fast as a traditional plane, but it is quiet and it is very small and it's very nice to be floating in silence. So that's our plan. Anybody want to invest? We're just making shit up now. Like, you know what I mean?
This is crazy.
Yeah. So,
and there was like no one on her team that was like, that we can't do this.
Oh, that's, so there's like the front facing company, right? There's like her, and then she had this guy who was her partner who he had like made some money. I think he had sold a company and he had made like $60-70 million. Okay. So he was like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not being an asshole. Like $70 million, very wealthy.
Sure. Yeah.
But in terms of being a tech entrepreneur founder, you're missing 3 zeros on that, right? So he came in with her and then they basically like co-ran the company. He was having sex with her also, which I can't imagine what that must have been like. She's all, like just like having sex with a fish, like an actual fish. You know, they're like cold, like dead fish. Like I'm not even talking about that. I'm just saying like the eyes where you're like.
Her eyes are gigantic.
So he and her were the only ones that really knew, like, well, there was a lot of people who knew, but in the forward facing, because they were out going, you know, Theranos, yada, yada. Yeah. So, but the R&D team, you know what R&D is, right? Research and development. No. Well, I just want to make sure. Okay. Well, for you guys who might not know that, and don't let Gabrielle.
Anyone as stupid as this female over here who might not know what R&D means.
You know what? Sometimes, guys, I see in the comments, they're like, do you know how condescending you are to Gabrielle? And I just want everyone to take a note right now of this moment. Who's being condescending?
You are.
No, you are.
Okay.
I just said, hey, do you know what R&D is? You said, yes. Oh my God.
Every
do I know what R&D is?
Every single human being on planet Earth knows what R&D means. If there's any...
You just said that on a video.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're being honest, guys.
If you didn't know what R&D means,
just be honest.
Please tell me.
Just be honest. Okay? There's no shame in not knowing what R&D is if you've never worked for a company where research and development is part of the process. I didn't know what R&D was until I worked for a company that did that, and there's nothing to brag home about working for a company like that. So it's okay that you don't know what R&D is, but prove Gabrielle wrong now so I can be condescending.
We all know what it means.
Anywho, so the R&D people were screaming.
Research and development.
Yeah, they were like, okay, we're doing these tests, and like, this thing, like it didn't even work well enough to where it would, you know, have like these things that would move around on the inside. Pick up this thing, move it over here, drop it in here, move it around. That didn't
even work?
Even that stuff, it would drop the vials and break them. It was like, it was a complete clusterfuck, right?
Yeah.
And so they would be coming to her and she would be like, we need this thing within 6 months. They're all, dude, this
impossible, man.
This is not going to work. And then they would be going out and doing these because everything she did was so public. Yeah. They're like watching her speeches and she's like, we just had an absolutely amazing breakthrough. We can now test for 68 things that have never been able to be tested for, like just lies, you know? And so they're in the background like, what the fuck is going on? Some of them, and anyone who would complain, like they would go and they're like, I have an issue with you making up fired. It pushed out every time. One guy who was like a really like very well established in the industry, you know, leadership R&D guy they recruited him. He was like, you know what I mean? Like, and he's not a sales guy. He's a scientist. He's an engineer.
Yeah.
And so he was going to her and being like, he's like, you know, 58 years old. And he's like, Elizabeth.
Trying to be helpful.
Right. This is not going to work.
Yeah.
And they pushed him out and he had no options, nothing to do.
Oh, gosh.
That's the worst story of.
How did it come out finally?
So there was, I can't remember which guy this was, but someone very prominent. I can't remember. It's a very famous person, like very famous, like Henry Kissinger, one of those guys, right? His grandson, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's either grandson or like great nephew or whatever, worked for her in the R&D department. Oh. And he like went to the press and he was just like, this is he whistle blew on her to the media. And when they did that, they, obviously did this massive investigation to try to uncover who it was. Ultimately, they figured out that it was probably him. So the grandfather calls him, who's a major investor in Theranos, calls him in, and grandson just tells him, he's like, yeah, it is me. And he's like, listen, like, this is a fraud. He's like, this is a lie. Okay. Like, this is never going to get done. Everything that she's saying publicly is not true. And, the grandfather didn't believe his grandson, like straight up so he went and talked to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth, talked to him and just completely convinced him that the grandson was lying and that it was whatever. And also, obviously, ultimately, it all came out. Now, the way that they got caught, though, was they had to, and as because like you take in all that money, the investors eventually are like, show us, when are we going to be doing business? Right. So they had such a hot brand, they went and did this, like, I think it was like $150 million deal with Walgreens. And so it was like, now you guys could get your blood test with Theranos, right? And so they were saying that the Theranos machine was doing it, but then they had these crazy protocols for how they would actually take the blood. And so they were taking a huge vial of blood. And everyone's like, I thought Theranos is like a pinprick. And like the technicians, like the pharmacists, the
phlebotomists.
But what do you call pharmacists and stuff? Okay. Are like, I'm just doing what I'm told here, but I feel like I recall it was just a finger prick. We're just doing this, and then they would send it off, and they were just doing regular testing and pretending that they were using the things, and they were doing it like all across the country in these Walgreens, and they, obviously eventually people were like, why are you guys doing whatever? They get caught. They should have just bought, they had so much money. They should have just bought, what's the name of the one that you go to get your labs, LabCorp or
LabCorp's one.
Is that what it's called? Yeah. I'm like, they should have just acquired LabCorp. Yeah. And then that way they could at least like have a business,
an income,
and then be like, yeah, we're working on this, spaceship that'll tell you your heartbeat while, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so she ends up becoming the meme of like fake entrepreneurship, complete fraud. And I just find that story utterly hilarious because she's the one self-made female billionaire they're like, she's the Zuckerberg, finally, the Zuckerberg with a vajayjay. And she's all, I'm a little bit more like a liar.
I am a straight up fraud.
Yeah. Who is so narcissistic that I just got caught up in this and felt can you imagine? Like, can you imagine if you were in that situation? First of all, you would never be in that situation because you wouldn't, if someone told you it can't be done scientifically.
So what was her undergrad?
She quit. She dropped out of college. She went to college for 10 months.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if she was just so stupid that she genuinely believed that it was going to happen, if she just kept hiring more people. And
I think she was like of the firm belief that like, if I believe it can happen, it can happen, and we're just going to march forward. We're going to go. Which
is how a lot of companies make it.
Totally. And I will say this, I would be being at least a little bit like dishonest if I didn't tell this part of the story. So Tim Draper was one of the first investors in Theranos.
I knew there was someone that you were connected to.
And when the documentary, the documentary came out that was very in depth about this, I asked him about it, and I was like, hey, I saw you in the Theranos documentary. And Tim Draper, you guys, is like a extremely prominent venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. The only reason I know him is because when we were doing when I was doing my company and we were doing a television show, Tim Draper's like big in media, and they got him to be the venture capitalist that we pitched. And then if the show would have gone to series, he was going to actually invest in all that. Mm-hmm. But this dude stated, like, any time that I have emailed him since 2014, okay, like I don't like blow him up, but I mean, there'll be 2 years in between. If I email him, he will respond within 4 hours every single time, no matter what, like dozens of times. So I just said, hey, I saw you in the Theranos thing. And he was like, he said that it was ridiculously harsh on her and undeserved. Like because like to him, he knows the fake it till you make it. That's the like, that is, those are the like he was first money in
you have to be a little bit crazy in order to make it.
He was first money in
like
SpaceX.
Straight up delusional.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, like he's invested first in all of Elon's things. He was the first money in Twitter. He was the first money. His resume of first money in is insane. how many times. Now,
well, you look at that, people probably aren't counting the number of times he's invested, and it hasn't.
100%.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That is like the venture model.
That, yeah.
You know, was invest in 10 or
One for
like
10.
20 even.
Yeah.
But they hit so big, you know.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, at least per the documentary, when I saw the woman herself, like I told her, this is this is not possible. Like this is a scientific impossibility. What you're saying does not make sense. It cannot happen.
I mean, I wonder if she just like genuinely believed like that's what they said about everything else. Space travel, airplanes. Everyone said it was impossible until it wasn't. So if we just work hard enough and raise enough money and bring in the right people, maybe we can make it happen.
For sure. I mean, because they were always spending money on the research and development.
Yeah. It wasn't just like it
wasn't
sham.
a fraud.
Yeah.
It was, she's an idiot.
Yeah.
And she got really caught up in her own story and she did the rounds. The first, you know, she's worth $9 billion. It's like, remember when we raised money, I'm like, hey, we're worth $3 million now, Gabrielle. It was just like, it's just like the valuation of the company. It's like, there's nothing. It doesn't even exist.
In that same vein, like, yes, she did obviously go make the rounds, but she was also probably partly created by the machine because of the story. Like, let's get the first female, blah, blah, blah. Like,
she was amazing at pitching. Like, so that naturally led to her successfully raising all this money. And then it also led to her being great to be on stages where she tells the story.
And media loves that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in hindsight,
like
when you watch her,
storm.
she's fucking crazy. Like she never blinks. She's doing this weird voice.
Her not blinking.
But the thing,
the voice is kind of weird. Like, why is it so
watch this, dude.
deep?
Sociopaths don't blink.
This is no. It's not a reliable indicator. So says AI overview.
What, dude? I feel like I really did. I really thought that I had read that somewhere. Why are sociopaths, psychopaths able to stare for so long without... See, look, Quora, someone asked that question. It means I was definitely right.
Obvi.
But yeah, she...
that was a good answer as to why, though.
What was it?
Like, there's an emotional component to blinking.
There is?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, like, you look at someone, you're all...
Well, it's like with the cat. Like, cats say I love you with a slow blink.
Are you sure that's true?
Look it up.
See, like, I've heard you say that a million times, and I never...
Look it up.
I never push back on it because
Google
I
it.
think it's... I love that story. Do cats slow blink to show... Oh, wow. Auto-populated. Yes, cats often use slow blinking, also known as a kitty kiss, as a sign of affection and trust, indicating they feel safe and comfortable in your presence. So I do actually believe that, and I'll tell you why. I've noticed that, you know, like with a dog, the dog is like locked in on you all the time.
Yeah.
But like a cat, if you want to actually connect with the cat, you have to look them in the eyes. Like you have to. There's no like, they look at you, you look at them, and you are communicating with them with your eyes. You know,
but like when Kitty is locked in on something like hunting, his eyes are gigantic. He is not blinking. But so it's a sign of security that they can close their eyes for a long period of time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's hunting, it's like
when he's hunting,
he's like, I am now killer cat. You're all you are little.
His pupils
they're black.
Crazy.
He has no eye. It's just you know, like, and it's so like our cat. His instincts, like just like natural instincts, are so
right at the surface.
So like all I have to do
below.
is just pop my head like, you know,
around
into a room and then pop it back, and his eyes go, and then he just starts hunting me instantly.
So great.
Every time. It's
so fun.
But the slow, I can't believe that was real.
I told you.
The slow blink, dude.
He'll do it back to me. I slow blink at him all the time, and he does it right back.
How do they know that, though? Like, how do the researchers know that?
Them.
So it's like, here's a more detailed explanation. When a cat it's saying, I love you, non-threat signal. In the feline world, closing their eyes can be seen as a vulnerable act.
See?
That makes sense. Similar to human smile. Huh. Why don't they just smile regular? You know, why don't they go get me a beer and like
their mouths?
Yeah.
But it's fascinating.
But the thing about her voice, though, is like, you know, the multiple sociopaths that we are sure are, I'm like, and what do I always say? I'm like, they're doing their best impression of a human all the time. It's you're saying, like, if someone was just observing from afar, they would hear what you say and they're like, that sounds normal. But if you're around them enough, you're like, you think this is what a human should say, as opposed to like a person just doing these things. And that's why I think her voice is so funny, is because she's like, this is what
It's her powerful voice.
Yeah, this is what an entrepreneur, billionaire female would talk like this. And it's just so weird.
Maybe.
You know? Like, hold on. Elizabeth Holmes, I think she did a TED Talk.
Oh, wait. There was one that said fake voice versus...
Which all of a sudden was brain...
Yes. Wait, where is that?
Right, the third one down.
Elizabeth Holmes, the convicted fraudster and former CEO of blood testing startup Theranos, often surprised people with her unusually deep voice.
Sure. Yeah. Over the last 11 years, we've reinvented the traditional laboratory infrastructure. Well, it's wonderful to be here. I started this company because...
Those who knew her in college, such as Stanford professor Phyllis Gardner,
by the way, this is the one who was like, that's impossible, bitch,
claimed that Elizabeth Holmes did not have the deep voice back then.
And what about the deep voice? Did she have the deep voice when you were dealing with her?
No. I was shocked when I heard her voice, because I'd met her before. That is a voice you don't forget in a woman. Oh, hello.
So what did her real voice sound like? There are old interviews floating around on the web in which she sounded quite different.
It turned out he had a nub on his elbow, and we talked to our lab team, and they said, okay, you can do the draw. And so they did this, what would have been a finger stick on this little nub on his arm. And sure, yeah, over the last 11 years, we've reinvented the traditional laboratory infrastructure.
In a 2023 interview...
Isn't that so weird? So check this out. Okay, so she gets, so it all falls apart. She becomes like one of the most famous, like she's equally famous for This Is Now. It's ever, you know, people love dancing
Except for me, apparently.
They love dancing on the grave of the first female billionaire. Like, people love to see the people who make it all the way to the top fall. It's like, I mean, I don't, but like,
I hate that about humanity.
I know,
but you're
it's
right.
gross.
Yeah.
But it's not like, that is what happens. They love, Justin Bieber's falling apart. He's broke. And I'm like, Jesus, you know?
Yeah.
But
show us you're insecure without.
Well, yeah. I just think it comes from, most people are not like super stoked about where they are positioned in life in general. And it's not because they wouldn't be satisfied otherwise. It's just because the TV and the phone is like, here's what could be. And so people are like, God damn, I could, like, if you were just a regular person, how would you even know about private jet flights?
Right.
How would you know about any of that stuff?
Well, I mean, we talk about that too, even just along the lines of social media, not even like celebrity life, but the fact that people don't get on and voluntarily share all of the negativity about their life. It's a highlight
like we were
reel.
talking to Victor about today.
Yeah.
Like the jiu-jitsu, this jiu-jitsu kid, he beat this kid today at the tournament. He's all, man, and he told his dad, he's like, he looked really tough on Instagram. Like, hey dude, something tells me he's probably posting the clips of his absolute best
it's your
fights.
highlight
you know?
reel. Yeah, but then like we're convinced that that's someone else's like actual real life all the time. And so you compare yourself, like,
yeah, and even the people where that is their life.
Teenagers should not have social media. Friends.
Totally, but even people where that is their life, people would never know about it. Like, so they wouldn't be like, man, I wish that I had this, because they don't see it. So people who feel like there's this thing out there to be had, and they don't have it, and they don't know how to start to work towards it, whatever. And then they see someone who has everything. It's like that's what would be the best case scenario, and they're like, you lucky whatever. And then when it falls apart, they're all, oh, yes. I mean, that has to be where it's from, because I really genuinely do not like, especially people going broke. Like, I've always, you know that about me. I hate seeing people who have had money lose it all. Like, it's something about that has always like hit this, like, I don't know, nervous center for me emotionally, where I feel so bad for them, dude. Because it's like, I don't know, but not her. I mean, I don't feel bad for her, but you know, So in between,
she's an interesting specimen.
So this whole thing falls apart, right? And she gets convicted. She knows she's going to get sentenced. So
what was the crime?
Fraud, wire fraud, all kinds of stuff. Like all kinds of stuff. I can't remember why, but there was a big gap between the conviction and her sentencing, like multiple years. And so what did she do?
Started a new company.
She went and had 2 kids so that she'd come back and be all, I'm a mom. My children need me. I'm a mom. And they were like, yeah, fuck you. Here's 20 years anyway, which I don't.
Is she in jail still?
Oh, yeah. She just went in, dude. Heather Holmes.
Elizabeth.
Oops. Yeah, that's what I meant. Who's Heather Holmes?
Don't know. Oh, a friend from the Bay Area. Yeah.
Holmes sentence.
Reduction.
So she was sentenced to 11 years, 3 months for defrauding investors, is now serving her sentence, though it has been reduced to 9 years for good behavior with a projected release date of August 16th, 2032.
Damn, I feel bad for those babies.
Yeah. So, and her kids are, so yeah, man, that's crazy. They'll grow up for 12 years without blinking. They're all, where's my mom?
That's sad.
I know, it is really sad, but they'll get to go see her. I mean, she's in a club fed for sure, and they'll get to see her. And then, but then she can get started on paying back the $452 million in restitution she owes. Why do they do that? Why do they do that stuff? It's all, and you owe $452 million. They're like,
how do they do that?
Exactly. And she's like, I can't even afford my attorney anymore. They're all, well, you're going to have to figure out a way to pay $450 million when you get out of prison. It's just dumb, dude.
Do you just file BK? Can you BK that away?
No. But they don't it's not like when you start making a little bit of money, they just come and take all of it. It's, I don't really.
Garnish some of your wages?
I remember when I first met Jordan Belfort, and I had talked to him for a few weeks afterwards. He had, I think, a $100 million restitution, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him, I'm like, so how does that work? And he's like, they start making money, you have to pay, but it's not like they're not just coming and seizing everything. But you also, if you're him,
the IRS did to us.
The IRS did to us.
Yeah, when they seized all of your assets.
Well, all my assets was just money in the bank at the time. Yeah. Yes. But what I'm saying is for a guy like him who really, there was not that much time between his high life and this, because he was this guy was living and then he went to jail for 2.5 years, and then he got out, and then I met him, I don't know, 6 months later, and you can't buy nice stuff. That's the thing is for him, he wants to live in a mansion. He wants to have a yacht. You can't do that.
That's how my dad, I guess, that's the word on the street. That's how he ended up actually getting arrested, was he couldn't resist buying the nice things, all the flashy stuff. And that's what it was a red flag.
So they were watching him. Mm-hmm. That is rule number 1 for criminals, and they seem to. I mean, I guess you wouldn't know if they followed it, but lots of them, it's we just pulled off this huge heist. No one buy anything. It's okay, and then that's the famous scene in Goodfellas. So no one spent. It's the biggest heist of all. This is a true story. It's the biggest heist of all time. I think they got $7 million in the Lufthansa heist. They just walked into an airport. And the security guard knew that it was money that had been exchanged in France. And so $7 million came in. And they just walked in, took it, the easiest fucking robbery ever. And they were like, don't anyone spend it. And all these fucking idiots went out and bought all this shit. So the cops instantly knew who did it. But the main guy murdered all of them, because he was just he didn't want to give them the money anyway. And he's like, these guys are going to get me caught. Yeah. And so, but,
That's one way to keep people quiet, I guess.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow. How did we get here? We were talking about Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, and then we were talking about feminists and their being butthurt. And and then I realized Elizabeth Holmes
is here in Texas
100 times more interesting than people being butthurt at Sydney Sweeney selling sex, which is, I mean, listen, it's a great topic. I would love to go, look at what they're talking about specifically. Yes. Sydney,
Let's see the evidence.
What do they mean?
Let's see the proof.
Dude, you want to talk about someone who's leaving big money on the table? Who? First of all, Sydney Sweeney's been nude 1,000 times in videos. I mean, in movies and TV and shit. How is she not doing OnlyFans? She would literally make literally, she would probably make $50 million her first year. And she doesn't even have to do anything that she didn't already do. Like, just do boob shots. Like, do lingerie boob shots. She'll probably make, I don't even know, $10 million a month. And she would just, all she'd have to do is announce it.
She feels like she won't be considered a serious actress.
Dude, honestly, I generally think that when it's like, oh, I'm an empowered woman, so I'm selling pictures of my tits. I'm like, oh my God, what idiot. She's the only one that I'm like, that's gangster, dude. Like, fuck it. But because she's already been naked, like on videos.
I mean, it's true.
It's easily just Google like Sydney Sweeney naked. There's like 1,000 things. Not that I've done it 1,000 times.
Never you.
Yeah, but like she's naked, dude. In Euphoria, she's naked all the time. She's got a gratuitous sex scene in that movie. Oh God, The Voyeurs. Did you watch that movie?
No.
Voyeurs?
I don't think so. Maybe? I don't know. It sounds familiar, but it's not ringing a bell.
Her and her boyfriend live across in a building where it's very similar to Watcher. The Watcher, remember we watched The Watcher? Similar to that, except they are watching them and they just get like completely obsessed with this couple who are like, it's actually pretty good. The casting for her dude.
So I could never live somewhere like New York.
I know, with everybody looking in your
out. Yeah, I feel like I'm living in a bird cage.
I know you would hate that if we had sex with the lights on and you knew everyone was looking. That wouldn't turn you on at all. That's definitely not a kink for you.
Well, it can't be like my neighbors.
They can't?
No.
They can't. When did I find out about that kink for you again?
I don't know. Probably our balcony.
On our balcony, where our neighbors would have been watching with you hysterically screaming, and I was like, wait, she's trying to get people's attention. What's happening right now? That was on your birthday, I think, actually.
Happened.
Do you know which day I'm talking? The wave house on your birthday? I think that was that day.
Yeah.
One of those iconic days in our relationship. Anyway, 40 minutes. That's good, dude.
Nice.
And we'll be in Cancun this whole week,
we're
guys.
Gonna try and take y'all with us. We'll take some
good videos.
Yeah.
So
we'll go live and stuff while we're there.
We will. Love you guys.
Bye.